Okay, good morning everybody and Hazak Baruch. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Wednesday morning as we are preparing for Thanksgiving. And we are preparing as well, of course, for Perashat Vayeshev. And here we are, Perashat Vayeshev, a very powerful Perashat. Lots going on. And we are going today to study something about the word that we use a lot in our lives. It's a word that we use, especially if you speak Hebrew. If you speak Hebrew, you use it all the time. If you pray, we use this word a lot. And I think it's a word that is worth studying and trying to understand exactly what does it mean. Okay, and that is the word Hatzlacha. Can somebody please translate Hatzlacha? Right, you see somebody, you should be Matzliach. Hatzlacha. Right, how do you translate Hatzlacha? Okay, I think it's a good word. Success. Okay, you should have a lot of luck, maybe. Okay, good luck. At the end of the beginning of a test, when we got a test in school, in yeshiva, the Mora, she would write Hatzlacha. Okay, so you should have success, you should have luck. The question, though, that today I want to study together is what exactly does Hatzlacha mean? What does success look like? You know, when we wish people success in their marriage, when we wish people success in school, when we wish success in their business, what exactly is Hatzlacha? And what's very interesting, first of all, what is it and how is it attained? I think more important maybe. And what's very interesting is that we find the word Hatzlacha almost nowhere in the Torah. We don't find it in the Torah. You look for the word Matzliach. Not so often. You know where we find it most? We find it most in this week's parasha. We find it by one of the most successful and matzliach Jews in history, maybe. And that is by Yosef. By Yosef, we open the text, and we're going to find again and again and again, no less than 3 times explicitly, the praise that he is given. Yosef is matzliach. So let's read the story. We go back after he's sold to his brothers. By his brothers. Vayeshev haurad Mizrahi, chapter 39. Yosef's being taken down to Egypt, and he's purchased, okay, by Potiphar, who is the butcher of the king. Vahi Hashem et Yosef, vahi ish matzliach. Well, Yosef was successful in his master's house. He saw that everything that he's doing, Hashem matzliach beyado. That's number 2. And then at the end of the chapter, let's jump quickly to Pasuk 23, same chapter. Right at the end, he's taken to jail because he didn't commit the sin with his mistress. He did the right thing and he goes to jail. And what happens in jail? Hashem matzliach. Whatever he does, he's successful. Asher hu oseh, Hashem matzliach. So here we have an amazingly successful person in Yosef. You know, Yosef is the only person that we find the word matzliach used so often. 3 times. Very unusual because it's again rarely found in the Torah and it's so frequent by this person of Yosef. Now today in the world that we live in, the word hatzlacha, the word success, usually when you say to someone, you know, I have a great guy for your daughter. And right away, the follow-up question is, well, is he successful? Usually, we mistakenly associate success with material achievements, with money. Or maybe success has to do more with fame. Are they popular? Do they have power? Are they successful? These are all different ways in how we use the word success today. What's very interesting, money, power, glamour, popularity. How many of these things did Yosef have with him? Which ones did Yosef have? You can show me on one hand. He had none. Yosef had no money, no materials. He was a slave, okay? He had no popularity, no fame, no honor, no glamour. And what does the Torah say about Yosef? He was successful. So that's very interesting. That a person that has no money, is not popular, has no power, and we could use the word success about such a person. So what is this hatzlacha that the Torah speaks of? What does it mean to be successful in the eyes of the Torah? So to answer this question, we actually go to the pasuk where the first time the word hatzlacha is found, which is right here, right in the beginning of the chapter. When it says that he was successful, let's read the whole pasuk because it's important to see the pasuk in its context. Vayhi Hashem et Yosef. What does that mean? That means that God was with Yosef. Vayhi ish matzliach. So says the pasuk. You know why he was a successful man? Because Hashem was with Yosef. So we know what that means. It's very possible to maybe suggest the pasuk's not only telling us that he was successful because God was with him and he helped him, but you know why he was successful? Because Yosef never gave up on God. Yosef never lost his faith in Hashem. And we're going to see 3 examples that he faces. Yosef goes through 3 very big tests throughout his stay in Egypt. And they really represent the 3 main problems that you and I deal with every single day of our lives. Okay? And we're going to see how Yosef handles them, and we're going to learn how to apply them to our lives. But really, Yosef is the paradigm of what it means to be successful and how to attain that success. And there's one common denominator. Vayhi Hashem et Yosef. Whatever he's going through, Yosef has God with him. The first problem or crisis that Yosef goes through, of course, is when he's sold by his brothers. Just imagine, here's this guy who would love to just be with his father. He doesn't have a mother. His mother died. He's learning Torah with his dad. He's just a little kid, having a good time. And his brothers sell him. And Yosef is robbed from his father. They remove his coat, the only memory that he has of his father. They throw him into a pit that had snakes. He miraculously is saved from that pit. We spoke about that in a previous class. Then he's sold to Ishmaelim and Midianim and back to Ishmaelim and brought down to Egypt. And he's sold as a slave to Paro. And at every stage of life, you would think about a kid that happened to today. It's over. Depression and addiction, the amount of care, problems that this person has, the amount of care that he would need. And instead of Yosef falling into a depression, instead of Yosef despairing, instead of Yosef giving up, it's such a dark period of his life, and he's a young kid. No young kid should ever have to experience what Yosef is going through. And how does one cope at such moments? What is one's reaction? Well, one reaction is to just give up and sigh and weep and cry and lose hope. Or one determines, I'm going to make the best of this situation because it doesn't help to cry. It's not going to get me out of it. Okay? And figure out how to just make the best of things. And to look towards the future with hope. And in this hour of misfortune, what does Yosef do? What is Yosef's reaction? The pasuk says, Vayhi Hashem et Yosef. Yosef never loses his belief and his hope in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He never gives up on God. No matter what Yosef is going through, he always has Hashem there with him. In the lowest of lows, Yosef says, doesn't matter. I am here. Vayhi Hashem et Yosef. Unbelievable. He makes the best out of situations. The darkest moment in a person's life, he figures out how to make the best of it. I'm just going to be the best that I can be. I'm a slave in this guy's house. I'm going to be the best slave. I just got to give it all. I just got to be positive. I just got to be great. Whatever is on my plate, I'm going to approach it and I'm going to kill it. I'm going to do the best that I can. If I'm somewhere that I don't want to be right now, obviously I try to get out, but let's say I can't get out. Let's say I'm a slave. It's not in my hands to get out of where I am. I'm trying. I'm sure Yosef would have liked to run away. He couldn't, okay? So now what? You try what you can, and then after that, that's it. You Yosef realizes, I guess got to make the best of it. So this is the first application of Yosef to becoming successful. When there's difficult circumstances, he becomes an ish matzliach because he holds on to Hashem. So number one, remembering that God is there in dark times. The second crisis that we're introduced to is right after. When he's in this man Potiphar's house, and Potiphar, a lot of weird stuff about this guy, okay? Some say he was a homosexual, but whatever it is, he tried even seducing Yosef according to the Midrash. But Potiphar is married to a very good-looking lady, according to how the Torah explains it. And Eshet Potiphar starts fancying Yosef. She has her eyes on him, and she wants to have her way with Yosef. Now, this is not something that's new for her. She's been with everyone around the palace. She just does whatever she wants with everybody she wants. And Yosef was a very good-looking kid, and she wanted to have her way with him. And the Pasuk tells us, Vayhi ahara devarim ha'eleh. After a while, where Yosef's already comfortable in the house, and he has carte blanche in the house, and he does whatever he wants in Potiphar's house, Vatisa eshet adona v'teineha el Yosef. His mistress starts looking at him. Vatomer, and she says, Shichva imi. Now this wasn't a one-time thing. Our rabbis explained that this was every single day. Vaymaen, and he refuses. Vayomer eshet adonav. I can't do this. My master trusted me with everything here. He gave me, I could do whatever I want. He trusts me here. How could I just be an ingrate? Vayhi kedaber al Yosef yom yom. She speaks to Yosef not once, not twice, every single day. Velo shama eleha. You know, it's one thing to fight off temptation once, twice. Every day it's staring him in the face. And he didn't give in. He didn't give in. Vayhi kayom hazen. Finally the day came. Vayavo habayta la'asot melachto ve'en ish me'anshe habayit sham habayit. One day Yosef gets there and there's nobody home. And this is the perfect opportunity for Mrs. Potiphar. Why was no one home that day? Says Rashi, Yom Meyuchad, it was a special day. It was the holiday of the non-Jews or the idolaters of the time. Shalchu kulam lebet avodah zara. They all went to pray. They all went to worship. And everyone left. And that day, she amra enli yom hagun leizakek leYosef. This is the best day for me to have my way with him. There's nobody home. Everyone's going to go out. Everyone's partying. Amra lahem hola ani. She said, I'm sick. I'm sick. I can't go. So Potiphar said, all right, honey, feel better. See you later. Let's go, boys. And they all went, and he left her alone in the house with Yosef. And he comes home that day, and she's alone with him. Vatitpesehu bebigdo. She grabs his shirt. Lemor, and she says, Shichva imi, sleep with me. Vayazov bigdo beyada vayanos vayetze ahutza. And of course, Yosef leaves his shirt in her hands, and he runs out of the house. And we know how the story plays out. She herself starts getting very nervous that he's going to maybe tell on her. So what does she do? She says she first has to tell on him. Usually the one that says first is the one that's right? So she tries to beat him now. So she starts screaming, rape, oh, abuse. And everyone starts running in. What happened? He says, look what he did to me. He took off his shirt and he's trying to be with me. And I started screaming, and when he heard me screaming, he ran away. He was scared. And the Potiphar hears this and he gets very angry with Yosef. He takes him and he places him in jail. So this is the second crisis of Yosef's life. First one is that he's sold. That's one difficulty, one challenge where life is just not going our way. Then there's the second crisis, and that is when he's allured and he's maybe tempted by evil inclinations, immoral things. But Yosef, again, conscious of his moral responsibilities. Yosef realizing that Hashem is here. So what if my father's not here? So what if no one sees? So what if no one's home? Hashem's here. Hashem sees. Remember the Rabbi saying Pirkei Avot, Ayin ro'ah, ozen shoma'at. There's an eye watching. There's an ear listening. You know, a few decades ago, maybe we didn't appreciate this, but today, everywhere you go, everywhere you turn, in every room, there's surveillance cameras. There are hidden cameras. People are afraid to do certain things now because they're not sure who's watching me. A Jew realizes from already 3,000 years ago that wherever he is, there's a camera watching him. HaKadosh Baruch Hu at all times is watching. There's always an eye in the sky. There's always someone above who's watching and listening, and it's being recorded. And after 120, when we get to Shamayim, they're going to play for us this video. And there's no denying it. You know, God's not going to need to sentence us after 120. There's no need for a sentence. They're just going to play the video. The sentence will just speak for itself. Whatever we did is going to be on that video. And it's sometimes going to be very embarrassing. And therefore, a person must always remember that Hashem is with me. Hashem is watching me. That's why, as men wear tzitzit. Maybe women have their laws of seniut. Everyone has different things to always remind them. I remember I was once in the dentist's office. And as the lady was doing the x-rays, you know how uncomfortable those can sometimes get, right? She's sticking the thing in my mouth, and I'm like, I'm like choking. I'm gagging on the piece that's like, you know, that she's trying to take the x-ray of my teeth. And I'm like, let's go, lady, I'm choking. And she's like, okay, I'm coming, 1 second. And she's taking her sweet time, you know, to get there and to take the pictures of my teeth. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm good. You know what? I'm out of here. I don't need, my teeth are fine, lady. Anyways, she starts making conversation with me. And she's like, let me ask you, if you don't mind, what is that thing that you're wearing on your head? And I say, this is what we call a yarmulke, a kippah. So she says to me, why do you wear it? So I told her what I thought was really the answer. You know, I told her, you know, because the word yarmulke comes from Yereh Malka. It comes from fearing God. It's a way of always reminding us that Hashem's above. Wherever I am in the world, I could be behind closed doors. I could be in a different country. I could be in a different city. There's no one watching. There's always someone watching. So that's what is the kippah. You don't have to wear a kippah maybe halachically, unless you're saying Hashem's name or praying berachot. But it's a Jew's way of always reminding himself that Hashem is here. The matter of fact, the rabbi on his deathbed, I believe it was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, when his students came to visit him, and they said, Rabbi, give us advice. And he said, I pray that you should fear God the same way you fear man. And they said, that's it? Nothing more? And the rabbi said, Halevai, if only you were able to get to that level that you feared God the same way you feared people. Because I'll prove it to you. When a person's about to do something that's wrong, what do they say in their head? Is anyone watching? I hope no one sees. So we're always afraid of God, of people. No one thinks, is God watching? If a person is able to always remember that there's somebody here. Hashem is watching. And so, whether people see it or not, it's irrelevant. I have a moral conscience, and I'm in the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. At all times, Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid, says David HaMelech. I have God in front of me at all times. How can I do this evil? Take a look at what he says. Enenu gadol b'bayit hazeh mimeni. Ech e'eseh hara'ah ha'gedolah hazot. Pasuk 9. How can I do this horrible deed? V'hatati le'Elohim. And I will have sinned to my God. Forget your husband watching. How can I do this to Hashem? Hashem's watching. That's what Yosef says. So Yosef, when he's faced with the second crisis, the second challenge of morality, he holds on to his faith in Hashem. And once again, the pasuk says he's an ish matzliach. He's a successful person. And the third, and maybe the most difficult crisis of his life, believe it or not, is not when he was thrown into the pit and sold by his brothers. And it's not when he was tempted by his mistress. Maybe the most difficult challenge of Yosef's life comes at the beginning of next week's Parashah, when Paro has the dreams that no one's able to interpret, and Paro is bothered, and finally the butler says, actually, I remember when I was in jail, there was this one guy that interpreted dreams. Should we get him? And Paro's like, yeah, I get the kid. And they pull him out of jail. And Yosef is now standing face to face with Paro. And this is another challenge in a person's life. Not when they're losing money, not when they're tempted with immorality, but when finally in life we make it. From the bottom of the darkest pit, I rise to the highest peaks, and I'm now staring in the face fame and success, and I have every single opportunity at my disposal. And I'm going to now become the most successful person in Egypt. I'm going to be admired by everybody for my wisdom, for my genius. That's another test. Because, we often think that poverty is a test, that failure is a test. But we forget that success and wealth is also a test. Because this is actually maybe one of the hardest tests. How tempting it must have been for Yosef at this moment to become vain, to become arrogant, to become filled with hubris, to start thinking in his head, like the Pasuk says, Kohi ve'otzem yadi asali et ha'ayil hazeh. My strength has achieved all of this for me. There is a time in our lives where we will make it, everybody. So I want you to know that. There's going to be a time in life that we become successful, that we become very successful. Whatever that looks like in your respective fields. Get a promotion, going to make a big sale. We're going to finally get We're going to get closing on the listing that we've had for years. Finally, it's going to pay off. The hard work is going to pay off. We're going to get promoted. We're going to get hired by this crazy company. We're going to start making crazy sales. We're going to start getting recognized for all of our efforts in life. That day is going to come where Paro is going to pick up the phone and call you and say, welcome to the club. I want you to become my right-hand man, the Viceroy of Egypt, second in command. I want you to become the most powerful person in the world. That phone call is going to come one day. And how do we respond to those phone calls? How do we act in those moments? It's very easy for a person to forget themselves a little bit after working so hard. And finally, coming home with the trophy, coming home with the big bucks, coming home with the sale or with the praises. And in those moments, Yosef, in his true humility, what does he say? What does Yosef say when he's staring Paro in the face? Just imagine the feeling. Hey, Yosef, I heard you're good at this, interpreting dreams things. Just imagine a person the whole life is working on a certain, thing, on, let's say, drawing, let's say art. And finally the president or this very, very huge mogul calls him and says, I saw your work, you're really good. Can you make something? I want you to paint live in real time my daughter's wedding, which is next week. I want you to come to the wedding, sit on the side and just draw a certain moment of the wedding. I want you to paint as the wedding is going on. They have those today. Imagine what would be a person's reaction. Their whole life they're sitting there on the streets of Central Park, just drawing for free, selling for $10, and finally somebody recognizes talent. This is my chance to show the world. What would most people say? Yes, I am. Thank you so much. I'm honored. What does Yosef say when he's staring Paro in the face? Vayan Yosef et Paro lemor. Yosef says to Paro, and he says to him, Bil'adai. Okay, this keeps happening. Sorry. Yosef says, Bil'adai. It's not me. You know what it is? Elohim ya'aneh shalom Paro. It's not me. God will see to Paro's welfare. I can't really help you. I'm just a puppet. I just work for him. If he is going to help me be successful, then I'm good. If not, I can't really help you. And again, Yosef strikes again with his emunah. Yosef comes in big, saying, you know what? I made it in life. I'm not going to forget HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's beyond me. The same way I turned to God when I was poor and I needed Him, I better not forget to turn to Hashem now that I'm wealthy and I need Him. And so once again, Yosef is successful and he's an ish matzliach. He doesn't permit and allow the glitter of the moment to corrupt, to demoralize his faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so this is an amazing lesson. How Yosef, again, 3 times in his life, Yosef, we find the word matzliach by him. And maybe each one corresponds to a different challenge that he goes through in life. Whether he's in the lowest of places or in the highest of places or in between, all of us, one time or another, are going to be faced in life with despair, having to battle our conscience, having to retain our humility in the face of success. We have to remember, no matter what we're going through, throughout the vicissitudes of life, to always remember, like Yosef, that we are not alone. That we have to, one day we're going to have to answer up for our deeds. And that in spite of all of our achievements in our lives, to remember that we are frail in the hands of God. And like Yosef, we'll be able to be matzliach. And so this is, I think, such an amazing lesson, that Yosef realizes no matter what he's going through in life, it's always Hashem. Always remembering Hashem et Yosef. Vahi Hashem et Yosef. Yosef was always remembering God's in front of me. If he's having a horrible day, so what? I have Hashem on my side. When I'm with God, I'm not worried. Nothing could go wrong when I'm with Hashem. When he made it, he says, it's not me, it's Hashem. And when he was alone, he says, Hashem's with me. So Yosef, throughout his life, always takes God with him. And it's such an amazing way to live. And by the way, the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avot, remember 3 things. Me'ayin bata, le'an ata holech, ve'lifnei mi ata atid liten din ve'heshbon. And maybe what the Mishnah is saying, let's just translate. Remember 3 things. Where you came from. Where you going. And in front of who you're going to have to give a din ve'cheshbon, a reckoning. Maybe the Mishnah is telling us these 3 things. Number 1, where'd you come from? You think that life stinks, life is hard, everyone's hating on you. Remember where you came from. You came from the Kisei HaKavod. You have a neshama in you. You have God, godliness within you. We have Hashem with us. We cannot fail. So if you're down, like Yosef, just remember that Hashem's with you. Me'ayin bata. Remember where you came from. You're not a nothing. You're not a nobody. But also remember, le'an ata holech. Remember where you're going. Ultimately, a person must also remember in their highs, you're not that great. One day you're going to be old. One day you're going to be in a wheelchair. One day you're going to lose your looks. One day you're going to need people to start pushing you around and to help you do the things that you need to do. You're not always going to be so smart. So again, these are sometimes maybe depressing thoughts, but it's not to get us depressed, it's to keep us humble. So depending on whatever a person's feeling, the Hasidim would always have 2 cards in their pockets. One of them would say, Anochi afar va'efer, I am but dust and ashes. And the other card would say, Bishvili nivra ha'olam, the world was created for me. If they ever felt themselves getting a little bit depressed, they would pull out one card, the world was created for me. But if they ever felt themselves getting arrogant, they'd always pull out the other card. I'm just dust and ashes. One day I'm going back into the ground. Le'an ata holech, where are you going? Why are you getting arrogant? Don't get full of yourself. Person must always remain equilibrium. And Yosef does that. Always in the middle. Not too depressed, not too excited. This is what we call to have hishtavut hanefesh, to be relaxed. Yosef has that. So number one, remember where you came from. You come from a very holy place. You're not a nobody. You're not a failure. Don't get depressed if things aren't going your way. Things will turn around. Number two, where are you going? Don't get too arrogant though. Remember, final stop for man is the ground. And number three, don't forget that ultimately God is with us. God is watching every single step of our way. And Yosef's able to hold on to these three, always remembering that Hashem's with him. And if we were to ask maybe one more question before we end the class today, how does Yosef get there? How does Yosef have such faith? What is it exactly that gives him the reminder that Hashem is with him at all times? We could simply answer that it was upbringing. He was raised in the house of Yaakov for 17 years. So, he had some good chinuch, like we say today. He had a good upbringing, good education. But maybe there's one pasuk that our rabbis point to that really helps Yosef throughout his life hold on to success and to be matzliach and to remember that whatever he is going through, Hashem is with him. And that pasuk is right here when he's being sold. Vayavru anashim medyanim. Sorry? Pasuk 25, chapter 37. The brothers throw him in the pit and they sit down to eat a meal. Could you imagine? The brothers screaming and crying from the pits of snakes and scorpions. Get me out of here, get me out of here. And they're sitting there eating their shawarma. They're eating some bread. Anyways, they see a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilad. And what are they carrying, by the way? They're carrying gum, balm, ladanum, right? Nechot, sori, and lot. Ladanum, I don't know what that is. Oh, lotus. Okay. Holchim leorim Mitzrayma. And they're taking these things. So it's like, yummy foods. Let's just stop for a second and ask a question. Does it matter what the camels were carrying? Who cares? Does the Torah need to tell this to us? By the way, how many camels were there? Doesn't say. What color were the camels? Doesn't say. What were the camels' names? Doesn't say. No, but you should know what they were carrying. It's important. Really, is it? Why? Why is it important for me to know what the camels were carrying? Does it make a difference in the story? Says Rashi. Always the first answer we go to for when we have a question. The first place we turn is Rashi. Rashi says, Lama pirsema katuv et masa'am. Why is Torah telling us what they're carrying? Lehodia matan tzcharan shetadikim. Look at the reward of the righteous people. She'en darkan shel arviim laset ela neft ve'itran. Look at the reward of the righteous. Usually Arabs are carrying neft, itran, they're carrying naphtha, they're carrying tar, which are evil smelling. But for this one, Joseph the righteous, it was specially arranged that they should be carrying fragrant spices so that he shouldn't suffer from a bad odor. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Really? This is the reward? This is the reward of the righteous? That he should have a little nice smelling scent in the camels that he's going in? The guy's being sold as a slave, being ripped from his father, never to see him again in his opinion? But no, don't hurry, Yosef. I got you, baby. I am hooking it up for you. I'm going to make sure that you have a nice... Just imagine Kyle Rittenhouse, like right there in the car, in the prison. He didn't do, in his opinion, anything wrong. He's a good kid, just self-defense. But don't worry, Kyle. We got you. We're going to imagine in the police car as he's being taken to jail. We have a little bit, the little tree, the pine tree. Baruch Hashem. What a good smell in this police car. Hashem, thank you for hooking it up for me. What? That you call hooking up? I don't need that. I'm going to jail. What is Rashi saying? Look, you see, the righteous they have good things coming their way. What good things coming their way? What are you talking about? The answer, of course, my friends, is that the Torah is telling us something very important. You know, throughout our lives, the one feeling that we hate is to feel that we are alone. We can't stand that feeling. We can't stand feeling alone. You know, Yosef is being sold over here, and he's about to be alone. Now the truth is, his father, Yaakov, was alone for many years, wandering out there to Lavan's house, sleeping on the street with rocks under his head. His grandfather, for many years, was alone. Abraham, for many years, was alone. So being alone is not so scary. You know the difference, though, between Yosef and his parents were. Yosef's ancestors were all alone, except they weren't. Maybe they were by themselves vis-a-vis people, but they had Hashem. Yosef doesn't mind being alone, but, is Hashem with me? That's what Yosef wanted to know. That's what Yosef wanted to see. As far as Yosef's concerned, he's by himself, alone from everyone, everything. Even Hashem is not here. And this is where Yosef is so perceptive and so awake and so aware that as he's there and he's sitting there in the camel as a slave with probably a bunch of other slaves, and it probably stinks and it smells. And what does Yosef realize? Yosef's aware. And Yosef's looking for clues. And then all of a sudden Yosef smells something. What is that smell? That smells pretty good. That's a nice, I smell lotus, I smell cinnamon. What are Arabs doing smelling cinnamon? That's not normal. And when Yosef smells that, Yosef makes a conclusion and he realizes, God is talking to me. God is saying to Yosef, I got you, Yosef. Don't worry, my friend. You're not alone. I'm with you. And that's all Yosef needed. Once he smelled that, he says, all right, I'm good. I'm good. I'm not worried that I'm by myself if I have Hashem with me. My father was by himself and he became very successful. And his father, because they had Hashem with him. This is God's way of telling me. Because you know, in life, when we communicate with people, communication can be done with words, but not always. Sometimes you can communicate not with words. Sometimes the way we say things, maybe with a little action. When a guy goes to work and he leaves his wife a little piece of chocolate next to her bed, or a little flower. Sometimes these are things that we're communicating without using words. And God here is communicating with Yosef and he's telling him that I'm with you. And Yosef was able to see that. Yosef was able to smell that. And so Yosef ends up becoming, throughout his life, whatever he goes through, he has that smell of lotus in his mind. And he says, one second. If I'm in the pit, if I'm a slave, it don't matter because God's with me. And then when he's tempted, he says, I can't sin, even though my father's not here, because God's here. And then when he becomes successful and he's standing in front of Paro, he says, you know what? I can't take credit because I have God with me right here. So Yosef goes through life, whatever he's experiencing, with Hashem. All from that one smell of the little pine tree that was in the front window of the police car. And he smells that, and that smell stays with him for the rest of his life. And he goes through life always being able to say, Hashem, I'm not worried. I'm not worried. Because I have Hashem on my side. Hashem, I'm not arrogant because I have you on my side. Hashem, I dare do anything immoral because I know that you are with me. And so this is an amazing lesson. To remember that we are not alone. To remember that no matter how dark, no matter how gloomy, no matter how successful, no matter how alone, we are never alone. And in spite of all of our achievements, Hashem is with us. And then too, like Yosef, we will have succeeded and we will be able to be termed matzliach, successful. Okay, let's stop over here, everybody. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.